Nau mai, haere mai, e mihi ana kia koto katoa. Welcome everybody. We'll start with our Karakia. Na mihi o te rā ki te whanau e hui hui nei, kia whakatāpua tātou mēnā mea. E whakapono ana tātou, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e, na mihi nui. Okay. We'll call for apologies. I think we've got an apology already from John Morrissey. Thank you. Who was swanning around the South Island on his motorcycle with a well-deserved break. He's worked hard, so we won't deny him that. Any other apologies? There being none, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Robin and Rekka, all those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Public forum, no registrations? Okay, thank you. Any items not on the agenda? Okay, there being none. Any conflicts of interest to declare? There being none, thank you. Minutes for confirmation. And bear with me while I get to my right page. Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee. Might suggest Robin to move that. Happy to do that. Could I get a seconder, please? Rekka, thank you. Any discussion on the minutes for the...
Yes, if I may.
Peter.
I'm just wondering if, I guess my question is to the chair of the thing, and is this committee working? Are you satisfied with the progress that is happening with the committee?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, it's working very well, and the quality of the reports coming to us is extremely useful and valuable, so absolutely yes.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Martin.
And yeah, I've just mentioned this to Ari, but we just wanted to put in attendance, Terry Walker was there.
Is that not in the minutes?
No. Well, the chair acknowledges Terry there, but under the in attendance at the top, it hasn't got it. I just thought for process.
Yeah, through the chair, we have got that, and we will make a note of that to include.
Fabulous, thank you. Okay, no further discussion. We have a mover and a second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. That's carried. Minutes for TCDC meeting 13th of February. Could I get a mover and a seconder, please, for the minutes? Delhi, seconder, Terry. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Have I got any other minutes for confirmation? I don't think I have. Okay. We will move to item 2.1, adoption of long-term plan consultation document. This is exciting. This is exciting. I'll invite a big team to come and present for this. So thank you. Once we'll get the team settled, and then I'm going to ask Aileen to give us a bit of an introduction and a summary, please, if that's all right with you. Welcome. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Aileen, please.
Yeah, good morning, councillors. When Mayor Len said there's a big team sitting in front of you, if you can picture about 200 people sitting there, because that's how many people have had input into where we are today. So just wanted to set the scene with a little bit of context. And in a meeting a couple of months ago, we heard from the Office of the Auditor General saying that this has been the hardest long-term plan in history, due to a whole load of factors, including the number of uncertainties that we've had to face and had to navigate as things change through the course of this long-term plan. The process for this long-term plan actually started straight after the last election, and if you cast your mind back, that's like 18 months ago now. And you recall we sat down and initially started talking about the new vision for the district. I guess where we are today is that firstly, you've inherited a reasonable financial position from previous councils, and today marks the first time that this new elected council gets to make its mark on the direction and on the work programme of council, albeit in a draft form for consultation. And in many respects, the LTP is a compromise between the aspirations that the council have for the job they want to do and the realities that you faced as you've come into the role, which includes the North Island weather events. So as a result of the North Island weather events last year, we deferred a bunch of projects. We didn't fully fund depreciation uplift, and we started to try and rebuild the reserves that have been emptied from the North Island weather events. So you've gone into this LTP with both of those, with their financial position being reasonably good, but a whole bunch of issues in the meantime. We also have the massive roads opportunity. We're also facing climate change and needing to address and signal to the community where we're heading on climate change. We also have growth that we're needing to look at, fund and support, and also the learnings from the North Island weather events about how we've managed to support our communities through this. So again, back to that compromise word, it is that compromise between aspiration and realities. This has been 18 months in the making. So I'd really like to congratulate our staff on the work they've done. We're actually in a reasonably good position process-wise. We're here. We've made it to the day that we adopt the consultation document. Just need to signal that the process ahead of us is actually quite tight. We've had to shift our hearings by a week, shifting them a week earlier because of some of the pressures which stem from the waters legislation moving around, that audit are needing to have an additional week to audit before they can issue the final opinion. So things are tight, and our staff will be dealing with submissions as they come in rather than waiting until there's a big bundle of them, because we're just going to need every minute. And we're thinking about how we're going to work that month in between submissions and hearings. So with that, I will hand over to Leslie to talk you through the more detailed version of it.
Are we allowed to formally endorse what Aileen has said, in particular the comments about the work that's been done to get to where
Councillor
we are?
Revel, you are very welcome to do that, and I welcome the endorsement, and I'm sure Aileen does as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, from my point of view, it's been a Herculean effort. It's been absolutely fantastic, and the level of engagement that the staff have had with us consistently, and ensuring that we are aware of virtually every decision that's being made on the way, without badgering us and without clobbering us over the head or anything like that. And it's felt very collegial, and I really appreciate the way the staff have gone about doing this huge amount of work. It's highly commendable, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And behind me sit a whole bunch of people, as Aileen said. So it's not just the three of us sitting here in the front. It's everybody that works for this council who's had a hand in this. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
Can I also just add to that as well, to support Councillor Revel in those comments, that I think the effort has just been outstanding, and I just wanted to say my thanks to the staff for the effort that has gone into this. Terrific.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. And I think actually coming from Councillor Grant, that's an interesting one, because I know that you because of your own personal reasons, had to be away through part of this process, and the fact that the team have been able to keep you up to speed and keep you in the loop, and we've arrived at this place, I think is a very, I'm sure they'll really appreciate that from you. So thank you. Well done. Without further ado, Leslie, do you want to talk us through where we're at?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I just wanted to, the report, I take it as read. If you have any questions, there are lots of attachments. please don't hesitate to ask any questions. We'll try to remember which attachment is which. And there's such a lot of material, but we will, if you have a question, get to the point where, you know, to the page that you want to talk about and try and give you a good answer. But I wanted to give you some assurance around process, because this is a real milestone in what is a continuing process. And just to give you assurance that you have actually looked at almost every piece of information that is in that report. And that starts, I'll stand and talk, but people online will have to bear with me. We've got our forecasting assumptions in there. Behind the forecasting assumptions is sitting our environmental scan, which we keep updating right through to the end of June. And actually that's a piece of work that the council should really keep going right through, whether or not we're doing LTP, we'll do that. We've managed our processes. We've had our snake diagram. Internally, we've had a schedule. We've had Ian Morton as our project manager keeping us to time. We've reviewed at workshops your financial and infrastructure strategies. We have made decisions on things like our significance engagement policy, for example, some of those policies. We have going out to consultation our draft grouping of activities and our activity statements. We've got performance information in there as well. We've had some QA done, and we have got a draft consultation document for you to endorse today. So suffice it to say that I think we've stepped you through most or all of the steps that you need to get to the consultation document. There is still audit to come, and there is still the piecing together of the draft LTP for audit. And that's quite a big piece of work, but many of the jigsaw puzzle pieces for that LTP are sitting in that agenda today, in that report. And we'll piece it together in an orderly fashion to tell a story through the LTP. And that's what we'll be doing while our community tell us what they think about what you're proposing.
Thank you, Leslie. I wonder if a good place to start would be the update on the changes, that additional sheet, because I know this has been some of the changes that have already been flagged. We knew about them, and these are updates. So I think everyone's got a copy of that. Is that a good place to start in terms of updating council as to where we're at with those?
Thank you. Yesterday, Ari will have circulated the memo from me where we've got just a few changes that have come through the documents through audit, basically, and just our continuing review. So to the draft forecasting assumptions, which are in attachment B, there's been a small change to the text, just a typo really, in assumption number 4, and that will be on, I'll just get the page number for you. It's on page 94 of your agenda. And so that's just, instead of rated, it says rate. So that's the first one. The second one, which is probably the biggest change really, is we have amended our rating unit figures. That's on page 95, 96 of the agenda. And so we've amended those numbers. We've corrected them so that they are actually well aligned with the numbers used by the finance team. And then following on from that, in the same document attachment B at pages 110 and 111 of your agenda, we have been asked by audit to include a new assumption relating to the funding for coastal hazard projects. And as you know, on the 14th of February, I think it was, at the council meeting, Donna Holland's report, where you resolved that you should have a 60% external, 40% district funding for that project, for those projects. And so audit has asked us to put that clear in front in the assumptions. We've done that, and I should mention that has also been brought through into your infrastructure strategy. The same thing is true of the rating unit changes that has been brought into the infrastructure strategy. And that's kind of an example of where you see how these documents need to be aligned. So your forecasting assumptions need to align with your infrastructure strategy, need to align with your finances. And I've just put that that new assumption in the memo for you, but it's sitting in your attachment. And then there's some small changes to the performance framework, just a small change to the, this is on page 127 of your agenda. For the emergency management activity, just some tweaks to the text, and then a change where we're going to say, instead of greater than or equal to 60%, we'll just say greater than, because the emergency management standards are 61%. So it's just a small tweak to be absolutely accurate. And then again, another small change to our latest result for, that's at page 124. And sorry, I've just had a brain freeze, but I will find it. This is the change to the latest results for our open spaces, where we had just an incorrect number there. And then on the infrastructure strategy, it's just for the infrastructure strategy, those changes are really just to pull the rating unit numbers into the infrastructure strategy, pull the new assumption in, and then there was just a small typo where text was showing underline in red that we've changed. And those, I think, are all the changes. And these are draft documents. We will go out to consult on them. There will be changes. There will be further changes when audit, I'm sure, when audit interrogate them even more deeply in June. And we will bring you the final documents in the infrastructure strategy. Financial strategy will be sitting in the LTP, and the other documents you will adopt as final documents in June.
Through the chair, if I could, excuse me, just ask a question. You've mentioned audit 2 or 3 times. Does that indicate that audit have now done a review of the document, and what's the status of that review overall? Is it just initial comments, or have they given a formal comment on it?
Through the chair, no formal comment. We don't have an audit opinion going out with this consultation document, but they have looked at all the documents fairly closely, I would say, and have looked at the finances pretty closely as well. So they've given it quite a lot of scrutiny. However, we have been told that the next time they come in early June, the documents will be going to hot review, which means that our auditor's opinion will be audited by some specialist auditors. So it's going to have quite a lot of audit scrutiny.
I'll ask Aileen to just fill that out with a bit more detail.
Yeah, so usually when a consultation document is adopted, there is usually an audit opinion. But in this instance, the legislation, the Three Waters legislation, provided for councils to go out with an unaudited opinion. And last I heard, there was around 25 councils that are doing that, because there just isn't the time for audit to get through everyone's audits and have everyone compliant with the law. So the trade-off for that is that, one, they've reviewed it as opposed to given an opinion. And then, as Leslie says, in June, there'll be 25 LTPs will be going through hot review. To cover off on the fact that they weren't fully audited when they went out to consultation. So we are compliant, and following a councillor suggestion, there's a note in the consultation document to that effect.
Thanks, Aileen. I wonder if you could just fill out that picture a little bit more and just explain to councillors what a hot review is in 3 words.
Wish I knew, but
sorry, I withdraw the question.
My understanding is that a hot review is it's a panel of auditors who are specialists, who will concentrate on looking at specific things in the audit that the Auditor General is very keen to see is is correct and stated clearly. And I know that they're looking at the performance measures quite closely this year. They're looking at doability very closely. And what else they're looking at? Climate change, yes.
Okay.
So yes, definitely they are looking at a number of things. But I mean, that's what they've told us they're looking at, and I'm sure they're looking at everything.
Thank you.
Through the chair, they also pick up, they do hot reviews on everyone, so they pick up things from other councils and then they really focus in on those sort of things that they've found to make sure that, you know, it's not sort of repeated elsewhere.
Thank you. Any other questions at this stage? I have a couple myself, but I'll just hold off for the moment. Councillor.
Just a question around Appendix K, which is the related to the Māori freehold land, etc. Is this the first time we have seen this policy? Because there are some changes in it, aren't there?
Through the chair, no, you have seen this previously. I brought it to you, I believe, in February. And you resolved, you agreed that it would not change, that we would actually start to review it because it requires us to have a conversation with iwi. And it's not a required policy, but we are required to have a statement in the LTP about how we will engage Maori in our decision making. So we're putting it out there just as an information document, really.
Thank you for reminding me. February was a long time ago.
Maori freehold land. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. This is a version of proposal on rates on Maori freehold land. This is the first time you're seeing it. There are very few changes to the policy. My understanding is that it has just been changed to include provision for the Te Tura Whenua Māori Act, and that's the only change.
Okay, so are we going to have an opportunity to discuss this document is in some sort of review context at some point?
Yes, you will, because this is a draft. We will take any consultation, feedback that we get, and we will bring it back to you.
Okay, cool.
And you will have to then decide how you want to change it and then adopt a final document, a final policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Martin.
Yeah, can I just follow on from that question? I might be wrong, but I had thought maybe a couple or so years ago we had some discussion around that, the percentage, like over the 3 or 4 years of reducing the remission down to allow time for a particular piece of land to be set up to be used, to be developed, or had that always been in the policy?
It had been into the policy in terms of what is sort of usable in that, and then the rest can be classed as non-rateable. So
right,
yeah,
because I think that the whole idea of that was okay. Well, there might be a piece of land currently unproductive, then we're going to develop it into a commercial thing, and so that rating, that remission will start off going down to 80% in the first and subsequent years to get it down to zero as that property starts to come on stream.
Yeah,
right.
As the portion of that property that is like commercial or usable,
yep.
Is then, and then the rest is made non-rateable. Yeah.
So to be clear, with the proposal that's included as part of this consultation document, the review of the policy is July 2026. This proposal is basically covering some very minor amendments. If you look on page 442, there's 3 bullet points there which go through those amendments, and they are, from what I can see, minor administrative amendments. Just make sure that the updates are there to include the references, the details, clarification of conditions. And so what we're doing is we're just adopting those minor amendments, but the full review of the policy will happen in July 2026. Have I got that right?
That is correct, Your Worship. However, when it comes back to you, you are at liberty to make changes to the policy, if you so wish.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I have a couple of questions, if I may, of Hayden, and the reason I'm asking these questions is so that myself, if I'm asked questions out there in the community, and councillors also, when we're having these discussions with our community, can make sure that we've got clear in our own heads where we're at with, particularly with the financials. And I just want to look at the external borrowings on page 355, which go from 79 million to 217 million. And I just want to make sure that over the course of that period of time, that we've got a clear pathway to lining up those borrowings with the CapEx program and referencing it back to what we talked about with the external funding for coastal works, which is their 60% assumption. That 60% assumption is now in the financials. Does that differ from the original draft that we're working from? Has that changed? Have we got the most up-to-date version with those 60% funding assumptions in there?
Yeah, Your Worship, those external borrowings have the 60%, 40% assumption, and yeah, those borrowings are driven entirely really by the CapEx program. So the draft CapEx program that we have in the draft LTP documents that are going out have driven those borrowings.
Okay, thank you. So the increase in net assets is 47% over the 10-year period, and the increase in borrowings is 173%. Could you just talk to the correlation between the increase in borrowings and the assumption on the increase of net assets, just so that when we're asked the question, we can have an understanding of how those two line up together?
Yeah, Your Worship. The net assets are on a far bigger base. We've got I think currently $2.2 billion of assets, and I think it goes up to 3 point something billion at the end. So in terms of percentage terms, there's $200 million worth of debt, and there's $2 billion worth of assets, and then within the assets they get revalued as well. So there's quite a bit of noise, and not all our assets are funded via debt either. They're funded via external contributions. They're funded via reserves, development contributions. So not all our assets are funded via debt, only a portion.
Thank you. On page 356 as well, we've got receipts from other revenue, and we're seeing a bit of a spike in 2028-29. Does that relate to, and I'm sorry, you don't have to, if you don't know the specific answers to this, I'm happy for you to come back to me later on, but does that relate specifically to the coastal project, or is that a wider spread of things in there?
Yeah, Your Worship, it'll definitely be due to the coastal projects. We'll have a big bearing on it, but we'll also have external subsidies, and that resilience work. I think that resilience works earlier on. Actually, the coastal subsidies will be the main one driving that. We'll obviously have our regular subsidies that we normally get, but yeah, that coastal protection stuff is a new sort of revenue stream, I guess.
Thank you. So if between now and the next time we have a look at our LTP in 3 years' time, we have a more of an indication from the government as to whether there is support for that 60% or not. I'm guessing that we're going to have to be looking at that again. So we have to make assumptions now. We have to plan for our 10-year program, but we're also keeping a close eye on what the policy is coming from Wellington as to whether we're actually going to get that support, that subsidy. Thank you. That answers some of the questions. Councillors, anything else? Martin?
Yes, so on page 59, where it's talking about the decision 2, investing more in future planning, I noticed that option 1, the cost more has got the minus, so a disadvantage. But then in option 3, the cost less is also showing as a disadvantage. Is that just me being?
I think that's good spotting.
Right. So presumably a cost less should be put as a advantage.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. It's a
Uh,
typo in
page 59.
illustrative form. Thank you. We'll get that amended.
And just also one more thing, page 345 for the CapEx community facilities, down under swimming pool, it says Thames Sub-Regional Aquatic Facility. So I have the feeling that 39,971 was the costing for a local, what's going to be called a local pool. Is that just semantics, or?
My understanding is that the project is continuing to be called the Thames Sub-Regional Project until such time as it is technically a local one. So it's called that by name, but it's only being funded as a local one. That's my understanding.
Okay, cool. I'm completely fine with that. I just didn't want people to look at that and go, "Oh, cool, we're getting a sub-regional."
For
the bigger one.
half price.
Can I just also add, because we had extensive conversations around this and how it was named in the last LTP, and it was felt that, yep, as Peter said, by calling it the sub-regional pool, we're sort of keeping our options more open in terms of external funding. That was from my understanding.
Are we comfortable with that? Because I'm happy to go with what the previous council has had extensive discussions, so long as there isn't any confusion.
And I am reminded that although we've had unofficial conversations about the funding of this new pool, we've actually never had a council resolution that the rest of the district would not like to pay for it. So there's still options.
Thank you. Terry, please.
Yes, just a quick thank you for the crew putting this together. It's a pretty clear and easy plan for me consultation plan for it to go out to the public to read. Normally the long-term plans, this is the third one I've been with, sort of give a pretty strong picture of the future. I find in this plan there is some pretty assumptions going on here, and obviously some stuff will be real tested as we go along, and that's the work that we've done around the table to get us this far. But I would expect that the community will have some comment, and you'll get that. Some of the local projects they felt didn't make it, and the big stuff did, so they'll want to know around that. But overall, I'd just like to say thank you for the work you've done, and let's see what the results are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I'm going to say at this point that I think Terry's made a really good point, that one of the things that has challenged all of us through this is there are a heap of assumptions that we've had no choice but to make, and some of that comes back to Three Waters, some of that comes back to the funding for coastal work, some of that comes back to the funding for roading. I'd also say that from what I can gather, in terms of our roading recovery, this is the most engaged that this council probably has ever been in our future roading resilience, and I think we all need to be mindful of that and congratulate ourselves as a council for taking the front foot and making sure that we're future focused on the connectivity of our community and our business environment. So well done on that. Reka.
Thank you. I guess I'll just start by echoing the congratulations and thanks for this process. It feels pretty long and grueling and lots of reading on our side, but I can only imagine all of the efforts put in from the three of you and your teams. So thank you very, very much. I had one question, and that related to attachment L, which is the comms plan. And in the past, we've done, I know we've got a lot of sort of online and media stuff happening, but we've done some face-to-face sessions. And I know we talk about, drop-in times with staff at the library and things like that. Is there going to be any of that planned for this process this time around?
Good morning, everyone, through the chair. One of the things we've been encouraging is, and this will be in the comms as well, is that we're inviting stakeholders and ratepayer groups to, if they want to hear from us, we're more than happy to be fronting. So what we've found in the past is that holding the drop-in sessions, you're getting a small amount of people coming through. The engagement was quite low. So what we've done is we've got sort of like targeted stakeholders that we're going to, and we have a checklist that we'll be ticking off week by week as to who we've been engaging with. But the encouragement, and we've been going to the community boards, the community management team have been stepping through with the boards, the consultation document, which they're planning to do in the next week, is go through the consultation document, talk to the community boards about these submissions, but also through the comms, if there are ratepayer groups or other agencies that want to have these meetings, we will come along as staff and with the community board to talk through the consultation document. So that's on the schedule. I understand the mayor's already got, with councillors and support, meetings with all of the ratepayer alliances around the district. We've met through staff to staff with iwi, and we've met with business associations, and these will be ongoing throughout the month. But the push is for the community representatives, the elected members, if they are getting groups reaching out to them, to let us know, and we will come as staff and help front with the elected members.
Thank you, Lorna. It's fair to say that trying to engage with all of the groups is hard work. It's a challenge, and it's going to take a team effort. We all have to basically do the best we can in that, and it feels like we've made a good start, but I think there's a lot of work to do. Are all councillors, you should have been made aware of the combined Ratepayers Alliance group that's coming here on the 21st of March. There's an open invitation to any councillor or community board member that wants to participate in that. I think there are 9 Ratepayer Alliance groups involved in that, and it's a very, very good opportunity to have that really full and frank discussion about the process that we've gone through, the process that we've yet to go through, and get their questions on the table and have that engagement, probably in a way that hasn't been done before. And Rob Boston has been instrumental in pulling this alliance together, and I congratulate him for that. It's a good opportunity, I think. So, and because it's going to be here, we'll have access, hopefully, to information and resources that we wouldn't have if we're trying to do this out there. But it's going to be a combination of things. Aileen.
So just to remind everyone, this is a Local Government Act process. So it's not an RMA process whereby you have to have a submission and it has to be in on the due date, and it has to, it's got a whole bunch of legislative things, and then it has to be heard. The LGA is a lot more broader in terms of the way we gather information, and each councillor brings information in your heads from people you've spoken to, and throughout the process ahead of us, yes, the submission is one way, and it is a reasonably effective way, but at all of these meetings, just gathering information on what's being said by whom is also effective consultation and input into the process. And it's deliberately intended that way because not everyone wants to make a submission and have to come and speak to it. So it is important when that we have these consultation meetings that somebody's sitting there getting some notes and making sure that that information gets onto the record. So it's a much more flexible way of actually doing consultation than previous and under other different statutes.
Thanks, Aileen. Martin, and then work it out.
Yeah, this meeting on the 21st of March, like I have already been approached by a ratepayer chair for some support on making a submission. So I'm just wondering whether this session on the 21st, obviously there'll be some talk from staff and some stepping through. Will there be more of a workshop type session where there can be some support around that submission process? And I want to add my thanks, sincere thanks and congratulations to all the staff involved in this document.
Thank you. Good question. So, who's going to pick that one up? Do you mind? Sorry. Thanks, Jill.
So my question was, if the ratepayer chairs or, committee members or representatives are here, there'll be, I imagine, a presentation and there'll be some talk from staff, from the team. But will there be some workshopping time on that day, on the 21st, for those chairs who have expressed a desire to have some support on how to make their submission? It's not just a talk piece from us, it's something that they can.
Yeah, so the area staff would be absolutely willing to assist, and it may not necessarily need to be part of the event. There's opportunity to be back in the wards talking to the various ratepayer chairs. Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if it's about support to learn to understand how to make a submission, absolutely, we can just put it through to us and we can help, because it's not just ratepayer associations. There'll be a lot of people who might not know how to make a submission. So we have been briefing the customer services teams, so they're aware, if they need to lend support to show people how to do that. And same with the area managers, we'll be able to help with the ratepayer groups and anyone who comes in. We're trying to make the submission as easy as possible. As Aileen referred to as well, I mean, we are doing a lot through social media, and we do get comments through social media, and that is taken as feedback as well. So there's a whole different range of ways that we can take feedback.
Thanks, Lorna.
Through the chair, on the day at that meeting, I'm sure that we can provide some information in the presentation about how to make a submission. Yep, and to point them the way to the web page and step them through. Yeah.
Thank you. Martin, please.
Yeah, I would find it really useful if some sort of a list or a chart of the various meetings that are going to be held. I'm not saying we do it as like official, you're invited to type thing, because that could get quite overwhelming. But yeah, I'd really like the opportunity, and I'm sure other elected members would as well, of going to some of these. We're not all going to be able to make it to all of them, but yeah, I would really like to be involved in those meetings, because I don't want Len and Aileen just to be shouldering all that burden themselves. We've got you've got resource around this table and around the community board, so please make sure you use it.
And
it was very bossy, sorry.
Very welcome offer. Thank you. Much appreciated. Definitely. Thank you. Oh, John, sorry.
That's right. I just put my hand up then. Through the chair, a question in regard to pages 83 to 87 in regard to the average rating distribution, and thank you for your supplementary information that was sent through. I just appreciate this, probably more so from a Mercury Bay perspective than a district-wide basis, of how what was it described as? The air in the balloon can move. it can be squeezed. So obviously this falls back to the rating valuations that have taken place. My question is more around, is this something that is a little unusual in this one by the extent of it, or is this fairly normal? And I just wonder what additional information that we could actually put together to try and help people understand this area a little bit more, because particularly for a couple of wards, there are quite significant movements.
Yeah, for your worship. Yeah, selecting these rates examples is a nightmare. We've done previously we've done average rates examples, and there's pros and cons in using a median and the average. And I guess in the last 2 annual plans we've used median, and in the last LTP we used average. And there's basically 28,500 rating examples you could give, just about. I mean, there's a few that are the same, but any change in capital value or land value or the mix changes the overall rating sort of impact. And we've used the median here, and the median in I guess in 2020 is very different to in Mercury Bay and Coromandel in particular is different to the median in 23. And then on the other side, in some of the other wards, the median is again different, and it's had the reverse effect in terms of the valuation mix. I guess the big thing we really need to be pushing people to the online RID. So on the 8th of May, we will put up a draft RID whereby people can go and actually see their rates increases.
Sorry, Hayden, just to clarify, rating information database?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
RID.
Yeah. So
not get rid.
No. So because we will have, so we've obviously got a 12.9% average rates increase, but with the valuations, that's going to change everyone's property values, and some people will pick up less than that if their property hasn't moved in line with everyone else's property, and some will pick up more than that if their property has moved a lot more than the average within the ward in particular. So yeah, every year you have a valuation, it does add that extra complexity to it. Yeah, so there will be a real range, and the team, they do their best to kind of, come up with the median. And so, because previously we've used the average, and then we've got kind of shot for the average being too low, because you've got all these sections and low valued properties in there, and then people go, you can't get a property for 500k, why are you using that example? And you're like, well, there's a bit more to it. So yeah, we can definitely, I think we should definitely put more in the consultation document about the range and the going online and looking at your property and finding out, because this is just one example, and clinging to it and saying that Mercury Bay, for instance, has gone up 16.3%. Yeah, one example has, and it's in the middle. But that property, for instance, that median property could be quite different to the median property we had in 2020. And yeah, it's really hard.
Hayden, just to clarify, I think making a link or an access available to people, I'm seeing the looks of horror on the face of staff when you say put more in the consultation document. That door's, we've moved past that. Please don't do that. Poor old Leslie. But certainly making that information available. That rating information database, what was the date again when that's available?
Oh, the day that the consultation document goes out, we'll put up.
So 8th of March.
Yeah.
All right. So that's.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Rika.
So that's not to say this information can't be online and people can find it. Sorry,
that's
Lorna
my
has got her
understanding.
hand up.
Through the chair, we can put some emphasis on that through our communications throughout the month as well, make that more of a headline too.
Thank you. Do we expect a flurry of, when a new valuation comes out, do we expect a flurry of people coming back and questioning that and disputing? Does that happen?
Yeah, Your Worship, traditionally we've had about a 1 to 1.5% objection rate.
Mhm.
So of our 28,500 properties, there'll be 1 to 1.5% that'll object. And QV have given us the understanding that they will turn those around very, very quickly in terms of going out and assessing them and making them. So it's about 1.5% is what QV have told us.
Did they expect those to be done before 1st of July?
They've indicated that the majority will be done. The vast majority will be done.
I'm sure it doesn't matter because they can look back anyway. So does it?
So this is probably an item to add to our risk list.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak further to that risk, Hayden?
Yeah, through Your Worship, they sent me an email yesterday saying that the draft valuations will now be completed around the 1st of May, when it was going to be March. So, and what they're saying there is that, they had to redo part of our audit, and then they've had to go wait in line with the Office of the Valuer General. So they're saying that they're basically due to the Office of the Valuer General's resourcing, it won't be finished till the 1st of the letters and the approval won't come through to the start of May. So I've obviously sent a number of emails back to them and trying to get assurance around, because whatever valuation we have in the system on the 30th of June is what we've got to rate on. On the 1st of July, sorry, that's what we've got to rate on. And they've indicated that that they'll be processing as fast as they can, and there won't be a great number that won't be done. So, it's a bit frustrating, to be honest. But
does that sit comfortably with you and your team and the timelines? You okay with that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. John, and then Peter.
Just a point of clarification, just so I've got it clear in my head. So from the 8th of March, the provisional numbers will be available, but they won't actually be confirmed until the auditor, the Valuer General, has confirmed that.
For Your Worship, that's correct. And QV are indicating that 99 point something they'll be the same, and there'll be very, very little movement in those valuations.
Thank you, Peter. Please.
So just historically, is the timing of the QV review always at the time that we're doing an LTP?
For Your Worship, because it's a 3-year cycle, so it's every.
If I just clarify, not all councils have the valuation the same year. My previous council, the valuation was a year after the LTP, as I understand it. But I think so that the councils QV must cycle through the councils, and everyone has it in a different place. But I can tell you that every time a valuation lands, there's all sorts of rating ups and downs, and sometimes they're very hard to explain to the community. A case in point in my last council was the kiwi fruit industry. When PSA hit, 3 years later, the values plummeted as they were on the recovery, and then as they recovered, the valuations leapt up again to the extent that there was 1 year there was an average 45% shift. And one single property that I recall had a 152% increase as a result of the shift in the valuation, with the 2% council increase on the top of that. So they create chaos every time. This is actually quite modest by comparison to other experiences I've had around valuation changes.
My sense is that people won't yet have got their valuations. When they do get their valuations, they say, oh, great, my property's gone up 20% or something. Oh, that's right, that means my rates will probably go up. Here they're getting it all in one, they're not getting time to adjust to the fact that they're actually finding out they're finding out that their rates are going sky high before they actually get their valuations. That just an unfortunate timing.
Thanks, Peter. Robin?
I hear you, Peter, and people do talk to us about rates a lot as elected members, which is really fair. The narrative that I used last LTP that I found really useful is to remind people that the rates are a tax. And so it's, it's unfortunate that we have to pay them, but it also means that we get to do all this very cool stuff in our district, and we get to keep the libraries open, we get to keep the roads open. And so that's something that I'd like you all to take away with you. These conversations is just say, actually, this is just another form of taxation, and you don't complain about IRD changing anything. You don't complain about the government. So it's a really delicate shift in the narrative, I think, because we're a little bit more available than some of the politicians that work in central government.
Thank you. Question, and this comes back to something that Aileen reminded me of. Do we, and tell me if you don't have this information, but kiwi fruit valuations, the policy of QV of including the value of the kiwi fruit gold license, and we know that they're worth a lot of money, in the valuation of that property. Do we know if our kiwi fruit orchards in the district have those license values included in their valuations?
Yeah, it's my understanding, Your Worship, it's my understanding they do from talking with QV.
Is that new, or has that always been the case?
I think it was brought in at the was it new? Yeah.
As I understand it, it was tested in court.
Yeah.
And that was found to be the correct position to include them in the valuation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a number of kiwi fruit orchards in this area. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion? In that case, I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder that we accept and adopt the consultation document, please. I'll go John Grant and Robin, please. So John's mover, Robin seconder. I'll put it to the vote, and we're taking the whole block of resolutions. All those in favour? Those against? And I'm sorry, Councillor Gottlieb, are you hearing us?
Yes, I'm hearing you. I'm not opposing anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, the motion is carried. And I want to add my congratulations to, I read through this document and I thought, oh, it's just so easy, it's so accessible, it's so connected with the language and the graphics and the visuals. So thank you.
And I guess it falls to me to say thank you to the councillors and congratulations to you all. It's a huge ask to be elected and 18 months later be signing off on a consultation document on the LTP. So thank you for your engagement, for the appropriate level of governance and the appropriate level of questioning, for your good ideas. Yeah, I think we've landed in a really good place.
Thank you, Aileen. All right. I have a feeling that we have worked through this quite well, and we've got to a place where the next item, which is Gary Towler, unless he's online, then we might have jumped Lorna? Okay. And Kelly. Okay, so we're going to go to item 3.1, which is the summer period peak debrief. And straight after that, we're going to have morning tea. We might have to. So, for those of you who don't know Kelly, welcome, Kelly. Nice to see you without an orange high vis and up to your ears in emergency stuff.
So I've been asked to take this report on behalf of Gary, who's at a Civil Defence Controllers course. And again, I just want to introduce you to Kelly Martin, who is part of Gary's team. She's been seminal in pulling this together. The report I will take as read, but some points I just would like to raise. We start this peak population planning back in September. We've been doing it since 2017. It's taken a lot of coordination around the business. It touches pretty much every single department in council, as well as other agencies around emergency services, regional council doc, probably a whole list, our subcontractors. Because it's been going for so long now, the maturity has grown in terms of how we have built our relationships, how we plan and invest in resource, and it does help us every year with how we decide where we're going to put our emphasis. Also wanting to acknowledge that there is a lot of staff who work over this time to make it as smooth as possible. And yeah, we do from here, we do this presentation to yourselves. Gary is going around to all the community boards to explain to them what it meant for their wards. We share this information with a whole range of other stakeholders who are really interested in what it means for them and how they can plan. So just a massive amount of work, and Kelly basically helps pull this all together, so wanting to acknowledge that. A couple of things I might just step through, if you're okay with that, is just some of the data. There is a lot of data sets in here, and in the report there's a lot of hyperlinks to some of those data sets. We've got our GMs who are looking after some of those activities, so if you've got some questions that you want to ask in more detail, I'll refer them to the GMs, but just a couple of high level points I'd just like to raise. If I can open up mine. Oh, thanks, Kelly. So just generally, we have estimated about 250 to 300,000 people came to the Coromandel between Christmas and just after New Year. That would be cumulative. We used to have, we were able to get from the telcos peak population the data sets of where people were actually on New Year's Eve. We historically had seen about 100 to 120,000 people on New Year's Eve on the Coromandel. Matarangi and Whangamata usually are those peak places. Those data sets haven't been made available to us this time around, so we're just seeing if we can get that in some other form. About 312,528 metres squared of water was consumed. I think, and I've said to, we did this presentation to staff yesterday, I think, how many Olympic-sized swimming pools was that? That was, some, how many? 25, yeah, 25 Olympic-sized swimming pools. 1,946 tonnes of rubbish collected, and that was about how many African elephants? That was, yeah, quite. How many was that, Ari?
272 African elephants.
It's a sizable amount of rubbish, and that's an increase.
That's what Americans do because they can't understand metrics.
Yeah. So that's about an increase of about 45% average monthly tonnage. Across the Pepe Bridge, we had about 28,000 vehicle movements, 85,000 vehicles travelling the state highway. We had about 943 requests for services, and that was the majority across the eastern seaboard, and a lot of those was around rubbish questions. 175,700 guest nights in the commercial accommodation, and 75% of those guests stayed in campgrounds. The dock campgrounds, they capped their numbers, but you can, we have got numbers from dock to say that they were at better records than they have been in the previous 4 to 5 years. We've got some economic data, which I will table. This has just come in, so we've just done this as an infographic. Oh, you've all got it ahead of you, that's great. Just some interesting points here. Peak summer spending, we did have a real boost for our district, but it didn't help us enough to recover from the storm-related events. If you look at that data, there was $96 million spent December and January. That's $8 million more than last summer, but as you are aware, last summer we were preparing for either a cyclone or out of some bad weather. Spending was 8% or $20 million less in the 12-month period than the previous 12 months. I'll point you just to the graphs. If you look at the peak summer spending over the 5 years previously, we are this year 96 million, which was just on par with 2020-21 when we were just out of lockdown. If you look at the orange part of that graph, that's international visitors returning to the Coromandel. Our average transaction value was $47.60, with the range being about $60.30 on average per transaction, and that's in Whitianga. In Northern Mercury Bay, that was $37.30. So Whitianga they take as the town, and then they've got Northern Mercury Bay, as you're aware, is like sort of Kuatunu North to Whangapoa, and then Mercury Bay, South Cooks Beach to Whenokite. Then you can just look at where the spend is around the district. Whitianga sort of topping that. And then the retail spend, the spending trends. So retail 70% was spent on retail trade. Just want to point out that while this is great news, we are still in recovery, and there is a lot of work still going on around the district, around repairs on local roads. We've still got red and yellow stickered properties, which our building team and our regular team and our ambassadors are working and supporting on. And still a lot of that recovery work is being implemented. And as you're aware, in the long-term plan consultation document, we're talking about how this needs to become sort of part of our business as usual in terms of working better with our agencies and our communities for a bigger social impact. So I'll pass it out to the councillors if they've got any questions.
We'll start with John and then Terry, please.
Thanks very much, and good to see some numbers starting to come through. So appreciate it. Just to help me understand these a little more. The 250 to 300,000. Are you able to just explain how those estimates were arrived at? Pepe Bridge has always been a key measurement tool, and you've said 28,000. Was that January for Pepe Bridge?
For the Pepe Bridge.
Just one day.
It was.
Oh, you mean which? Was it a January day?
Yeah.
Good question.
I understand, like, I'll defer to Mo on this, but the numbers are taken from, we've got traffic counters all around the district. So I think we've got 10 around local roads, and then we've got some through Waka Kotahi. Mo, you might want to just elaborate, or Ed.
If I may, through the chair, TCDC doesn't have any permanent traffic counting sites on our roads. Waka Kotahi do, however, and they provide us with traffic data. We use that traffic data and make an estimate on the number of people within each vehicle. We know the different vehicle types, like vehicles, coaches, etc. And there's a transport planning formula that actually then provide that figure. We typically take between 2.5 and 3.2 people per vehicle for holiday peaks.
I saw some numbers for the that Waka Kotahi, I think, had put out for 25A, which was sort of averaging around 7,000 cars per day, which was around the same numbers that they had on previous years. So, you know, the information that is particularly of interest out of this is in regard to our economic outlook, I guess, in regard to how businesses are doing from this. And you know, when you look at the peak summer visitor spending and how that is broken down, that sort of gives us a very similar year to 2019, 2020, and you know, we've had a reasonable amount of inflation since that period of time. So it's in some ways a little concerning to see some of those numbers. How much of an influence do you think the lack of the Whitianga Summer Concert might have had on those numbers? And has that distribution changed, you know, with Mercury Bay seeming to get a large portion of that spend?
With the summer concert, a lot of the time they come to Mercury Bay because they've already got that captured market. We understand through the Airbnb and the bookings that they were still quite high for Mercury Bay, so there wasn't a drop in that. We do know that there is plans for the concert to come back. On the second question around the part, sorry, what was that, John? That was.
Sure, I can remember now. It was really just around the overall spend, 96 versus the 91. So we haven't really seen any growth in spending, even though it did peak in the COVID times. With domestic numbers, the domestic numbers seem to be quite down.
Yeah, I think with the COVID as well, a lot of people got the COVID subsidy, so that helped with keeping the spending up over that year. And we do know anecdotally that people are finding that they're going to, when they're going out, they're spending less. They're coming down and they're maybe, they'll go to the petrol station. They're buying a lot at the supermarkets and doing more at home rather than going out and spending in the retail sector as well. So there is that. I'll just defer also to Mitch King, who's our ED lead, if there is anything else, Mitch, that you wanted to add to that.
Sorry, Terry, please, and then Peter, and then Martin.
Thanks for the information. My question is really around the average transaction value of the district, $47.60, and the $60 in Whitianga. Do they align to the 5 points below? Is that where that money is decided out of those figures?
So that average could be like one person going to a few different places throughout the day. Right. So that's per transaction. You'll find probably as well with the retail trade, there's some of the areas like Whitianga, they've got more shops available, more services available, so the transactions would be high because they've got, more supermarkets, more petrol stations than, say, the likes of Tairoa, Pauanui.
Yeah, so I look at those numbers, like retail's is really high there, and yet transportation and travel is very low, and you think, well, fuel, and that's a big player. So there seem to be very big high numbers around the food side of it and retail. So, yeah, it's a bit odd for me to try and grasp that figure, but we'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Peter, please.
Yeah, that just in relate to both those questions. The 47.6, do we have average for previous years? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Martin, please.
Yes, sorry. I think the second part of John's question, or the first part, it was talking about the fact we've had inflation. But so you look at that and you go, oh yeah, 96 million back then and 96 million now, cool, that's recovered. But when you take inflation into account, then it's significantly below that.
Thank you. Any further? Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Kelly. Just a thought from me, and it comes back to something that John raised, and I think it's a really important point, and it goes to the concerns that we have. The numbers, visitor numbers are up, but the economic spend is down. And it's something that I think's been flagged a couple of times. And that comes back when we're having our discussions with our communities about the proposals in our consultation document. That comes back to the essence of the contribution that we can make as a community in playing our role with economic development, with supporting our business environment, with supporting our economic activity in a way that doesn't necessarily fit with pipes and what some people would describe as core activities. So I think we've got to get that balance right, and a vibrant business community, a vibrant economic community leads to a vibrant community overall. So I think we've got to be mindful of that we have a responsibility to support each other as a community, because if that trend continued to go down, I think it would be cause for concern for all of us. So just an aside there, but thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Kelly. Any further questions? Peter.
Can I just make a comment that we have a lot of information around our tourism sector, which is obviously is the most important aspect for the economy. But we also have two other sectors which are really important, forestry and aquaculture. And I'm just wondering whether we should be having some more frequent updates on the health and progress and so on in those particular industries, because we're not just a tourist destination. There are these other important economic drivers for us.
I think that's a really important point, and I know that there's been some discussion, particularly around aquaculture, in the visions that the new government has in terms of what do we need to do to support communities, particularly in supporting aquaculture, and is that consenting, is that fast track consenting, is that roading? And we've certainly had discussions with the recovery minister and with cabinet ministers and the roading environment, the people involved in the roading environment, particularly around Takuma roundabout and Sugarloaf. And I've had a discussion recently with Joe Davis at Ngāti Hay around the spat farm. But it goes wider than that also, because there's been a fringe discussion around the spat farm at Raglan. Although Raglan's not in our district, we have an aquaculture industry that absolutely needs that spat to enable our aquaculture industry to go forward and to be thriving. And we're talking about 60,000 tonnes of mussels, potentially, that is a direct result of the spat farm at Raglan. So it's all connected, and in terms of having discussions with the ministers and the people involved in that industry, we've got to support each other and make sure that those discussions are connected as much as we possibly can. So it's a really good point, Peter. Probably need more discussion around forestry, and I'm a bit in the dark as to where we're at on that. So I'd look forward to those as well.
Just through the chair as well, I'd just like to acknowledge that the Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee, we have an economic development report that's presented, and there is a section on aquaculture, so we can share that a bit further. The ED team are actually working on pulling together a bit more data about the impacts of aquaculture in the Coromandel. There was an NZIER report done in 2017, which we are re-looking at and looking at how that has changed. Taking on board about the forestry side of things as well. We will be able to, we are talking to different forestry groups in the sector, so we can bring more of that information back as well.
That would be very welcome. Thank you, Lorna. So, okay. Can I just take a moment to refresh myself on the resolution that's needed for that? Is there any further discussion?
I'm happy to
Thank
second.
you. Seconder. Thank you. The resolution is that we receive the report. We have a mover and a second. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Kelly. I think we'll take a break now for a cup of tea. And we'll come back at 20 minutes to 11, please. Are you hearing that, Councillor Gottlieb? Taking a break for a cup of tea.